I'm sure many of you have heard by now, and I'm actually pretty late to the party, but it seems like Giannis Antetokounmpo wants out of Milwaukee as rumored by many reputable reporters, with the Bucks seemingly kind of setting their eyes on making a trade for Giannis to get him out. And in this video, I'm going to provide 5 realistic trade scenarios that could legitimately happen with teams who could look to add someone of Giannis Antetokounmpo's caliber to their team, and teams who Giannis himself will probably be interested in. These trades are meant to be pretty realistic, and you could kind of see with some of the packages that we have in this deal, these are packages that could entice Milwaukee without the teams who are trading for Giannis giving up too much, which is one of the things that can happen when you are trading for a star player. Now, this domino that Giannis Antetokounmpo is getting traded is going to be the biggest domino to fall this season, and it's something I think we can all really truly look forward to. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Our first trade of the day is actually probably my favorite trade, and it's with the San Antonio Spurs, who will acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo and send out Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, Kelly Olynyk, Carter Bryant, their 2026 Chicago's first round pick, the Atlanta unprotected pick in 2027, Dallas's 2030 first round pick that's unprotected as well, and a 2031 Sacramento Kings pick. And this is a massive trade, and it's probably my favorite destination for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I think it's probably the Milwaukee Bucks' dream return package. This is as good as it gets, I think, for a return package if you're Milwaukee. You can probably hope to get more if you get Dylan Harper instead of Stephon Castle. I think you're happier if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. But from the San Antonio Spurs' perspective, there have been a lot of rumors coming out saying that in a Giannis deal, the Spurs might be unwilling to move Dylan Harper. And I can't say I disagree with them, because Dylan Harper does have otherworldly potential, but this is Giannis Antetokounmpo at the end of the day, and I think you have to give up someone of amazing value in order to have him. And this is Stephon Castle, who probably seems to be the most expendable out of the 3 guards down in San Antonio. Obviously, in an ideal world, you probably just want to get rid of Devin Vassell and like Keldon Johnson instead of Stephon Castle, but I don't think the Milwaukee Bucks bite on that, especially with some of the other offers that they may be receiving from other teams who are more desperate. And if you're the San Antonio Spurs, you pair a literal top 5 talent with another top 5 talent in Victor Wembanyama, and you have probably one of the greatest duos in NBA history in terms of just pure talent. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Victor Wembanyama, and you have a pretty solid supporting cast as well, because you're going to have Dylan Harper, who could be another all-star caliber player in a couple years. You have De'Aaron Fox, and you have a bunch of solid role players like Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, and it comes to be like a legitimate, formidable team who might be able to compete in the West, because OKC looks kind of unbeatable. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, I think you're pretty happy with this return, because you get a good player in Devin Vassell, Kelly Olynyk, a salary filler, and you get 2 really promising young assets. Stephon Castle could be a potential all-star, right? He has all-star potential. He's having a fantastic sophomore year. You get Carter Bryant, who has a ton of potential, someone I was high on coming into the draft. And you get really valuable picks. That 2031 Sacramento pick, the 2030 Dallas pick, and the 2027 Atlanta pick could prove to be really valuable depending on how everything plays out with those teams. And overall, I think this is a really good return if you're Milwaukee, but you might prefer Dylan Harper. For our next trade of the video, we have the New York Knicks, who has reportedly been Giannis's ideal landing destination for the past year or so. There have been a lot of rumors coming out that he's looking to get traded to any of the Big Apple teams, and realistically, the Knicks are the only team who are in championship contention and have championship aspirations, with the Brooklyn Nets embracing a full rebuild. And a Knicks package gets quite difficult because they don't have much of what the Bucks would potentially be looking for, which is draft capital and young players. And this is probably one of the worst trade packages you'll see in this video. And this is just me assuming that Giannis Antetokounmpo says he will not play for any other team besides the New York Knicks. in which case the Bucks would acquire Karl Anthony Towns, Pacome Dadier, and a bunch of first-round pick swaps until the end of time from the New York Knicks. Now, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm not sure how ecstatic you are with this return, because you're not ecstatic at all. Maybe you could flip Cat down the line for something else, for another team, for a younger talent and more draft capital, but I don't know, that seems pretty unlikely. If you're the Knicks, I think you are very, very happy with this trade. You get a top 5 talent, top 4 talent in the league, and it really boosts your chances of winning the East, which seems wide open. And it's a win-win trade for Giannis and the Knicks, with the Bucks sort of coming out as losers in this deal. Our next trade is another fun one, and it's with the Atlanta Hawks. It's a deal where Atlanta sends out Kristaps Porzingis, Zachary Risachet, the former first overall pick, Asa Newell, and a bunch of first round picks for the next couple of years. The 2026, their own first round pick, the New Orleans Pelicans pick, which is looking to be a top 3 pick next season or in this upcoming draft, and a 2029 and 2031 Atlanta first round pick. I think you could maybe increase the draft capital if you need to. I don't think this is too much capital that you're giving up, with the big piece in this trade being the Pelicans pick next year and Zachary Risachet. And if you're Atlanta, right, this is one of the deals that I think you kind of sort of just have to make if you're them, because you're not giving up your 2 franchise cornerstones in Jalen Johnson and Trae Young. I know a lot of people have seen, or a lot of people have been calling for Trae Young to get traded in a potential deal for Giannis, with Jalen Johnson being the franchise cornerstone. But I just don't see a world where Giannis is going to play on a team without an elite guard. I don't think that's something that he's really interested in, and that's one of the things you're going to see in common with a lot of the deals that we have in this video. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been very vocal about wanting to play with a elite point guard, and in this case, the Hawks would have to retain Trae Young. And in my opinion, if you get rid of Trae Young, you no longer are a championship team. And this deal really helps the Hawks because you aren't getting rid of anyone that you are in love with too much. Yes, that Pelicans pick does hurt per trade, but this is Giannis Antetokounmpo we're talking about. And with the East being wide open, I think it's worth taking a shot, worth taking a risk to attain a player of that value. And from the Milwaukee Bucks' point of view, this is also one of the better trade packages you can receive, because you are getting Kristaps Porzingis, he's a good player, right? He's someone you could maybe trade, and he's also on an expiring deal. You get Zachary Risachet, the former first overall pick. Yes, he's not he doesn't have the star potential like a Stephon Castle, I think, but he's still a former first overall pick who still has some potential. You have Asa Newell, someone who I was very high on coming into the draft, and someone who I think could be a building block for you. And you also get that Pelicans first round pick. And depending on your lottery luck, this is almost guaranteed to be a top 3 pick. So you could almost immediately draft your next franchise guy between Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonster, or Cameron Boozer. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, I think you walk out pretty happy with this deal. Maybe you want a little bit more, but I think if you're Atlanta, you probably wouldn't hesitate much to give up a little bit more for this in this hypothetical trade situation. Our fourth team up is the Miami Heat, which has seemingly grown a ton of traction overnight for a potential Giannis deal. A lot of reports have come out that Giannis Antetokounmpo is actually extremely interested in a trade to the Miami Heat. I think it's because he's been knocked out by them like twice so far. But this is a deal that is pretty interesting because I think Giannis is one of those players that would love to play for Eric Spoelstra, and the Miami Heat would love to have a player like Giannis on their team because they haven't had that sort of superstar since LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. And this is a deal where the Miami Heat would send out Andrew Wiggins, Simon Fontecchio, Nikola Jovic, Kelly Ware, Kasparis Yakushonis, a 2026, 2030, and 2032 first round pick, and a 2029 first round pick swap. And this is one of those trades where, yes, the youth isn't as good as the other young players you might receive in potential trades, but you receive a lot of youth here. You receive 3 young, promising players. Nikola Jovic looks pretty decent. Khalil Ware's looked really good. And Kasparis Yakushonis we haven't seen much of, but he was a player who I had going as high as 5 in this past overall draft. And this is a deal where you are getting first round picks and you are pretty much taking all of Miami's draft capital, which is a necessity if you're Miami, in my opinion, if you want to get a deal for Giannis done, because of the other competing offers that you're going to have to fight against. I know a lot of Heat fans may be like, oh, we're giving up too much. No, you are not. Trust me, this is nothing compared to what other potential offers could be. And you are also giving up Andrew Wiggins, who you just have to include in for salary filler. I know I saw a trade somewhere out there on Twitter where it's a Tyler Hero based trade, but like I said, I don't think if you're Miami, it's going to sound really stupid, but I don't think it's worth making a deal where you have to get rid of Tyler Hero instead of, say, giving up a Jovic or Kaspersky Okušonis or Khalil Ware. Because a big three of Tyler Hero, Giannis, and Bam Adebayo sounds really good, and you also still retain a lot of your good role players. If you're giving up Tyler Hero, I don't think that makes you a legitimate threat in the East. Say as to retaining Tyler Hero and giving up someone else, and in this case your youth and some of your players. If you're Miami, I think this is a pretty solid return. It's not definitely not as good as it gets, because I think you could definitely get more value, say from the Spurs or say from the Atlanta Hawks trades that we just spoke about. But this is once again Giannis's ideal landing spot from rumors, kind of like the Knicks trade. And if Milwaukee decides to do right by Giannis, I think this is probably the type of return that they're going to have to take back. Maybe more draft capital is involved, and maybe another young player is involved in this deal. But this is kind of the basis of the trade that I have, and I think it's a pretty large trade, a pretty big trade for Miami, who come out as definitive winners. Our fifth and final trade of the video is a trade that I'm actually not a trade that I'm a fan of, but a team that I'm a fan of, and it's Giannis going to the Detroit Pistons, for Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and every single fucking first round pick in Detroit's arsenal. Because to put it quite simply, right, compared to the other teams who are making a deal outside of the New York Knicks, the Pistons are not giving up much in terms of players. Yes, you're giving up two former 5th overall picks in Jaden Ivey and Ron Holland, which maybe hold value. I know Ron Holland probably does, but in terms of the quality of the young players, they are definitely weaker than the other teams that I mentioned outside of the Knicks. So you do have to give up far more draft capital than those teams. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like 6 first-round pick swaps or something like that. And if you're the Pistons, this is kind of a deal that you are maybe iffy on, but you need to add some talent around Cade Cunningham. You need to add someone who could take the pressure off, and there's no one better on the market than Giannis Antetokounmpo who could do that. Yes, your shooting becomes fucking diabolically bad, right? Your positive shooters, Duncan Robinson and Cade Cunningham, who's shooting 29% from 3. But this is one of the deals that if you're the Pistons, you kind of just have to do if the Milwaukee Bucks are willing to accept it. Now, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, do you accept this over a San Antonio trade? No, I don't think you do, right? This is just kind of this is one of the probably the biggest long shots in this video, probably the most unrealistic one, but it's a trade that I like. It's a trade I'm a fan of. Imagine those Cade and Giannis pick and rolls. Like the Cade and Jalen Duren pick and rolls already look crazy. Imagine him and Giannis. And I think this is a deal that could really make the Pistons into actual real like winners of the East, because right now they are the number 1 seed. They look great, but adding Giannis just makes them even better. And this is a deal that I could really get behind. Yeah, and that's all for the video. Please let me know in the comments what you think about some of these trades, which one's your favorite, because personally I love the San Antonio trade, and I hope that they don't have to give up Stephon Castle in a potential deal, but I think it's kind of a default that they have to give up one of Stephon or Dylan Harper. And let me know which ones you like, which ones you disagree with, if you think some of the teams are giving up too much. And leave in the comments if you have another team who you think Giannis Antetokounmpo would be a great fit for, who also have the capital and assets to trade for him. Yeah, this has been the HQE. Make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another one.